Hi there, everyone, and welcome again to the From Desk to Dynasty podcast. As always, I'm your host, Owen, sitting down with a very exciting guest today, Travis. So, without further ado, Travis, I'll pass it across to yourself for a quick introduction.
Thanks a lot, Owen. Yeah, my name is Travis Janko. I'm the CEO of GSD Coach Recruiting, and we help growing SaaS founders, growing SaaS companies hire the top 5% of sales talent fast. So,
Awesome. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. No, I'm super excited to sit down. I know we've been going back and forward over messages for, a little bit in the past couple of weeks. But Travis, just to kick us off, for those who might not know you yet, could you share with us a little bit about, your journey into recruitment and what it was that really drew you to the industry?
yeah, it's quite a story. So Owen, I was a sales leader for about 25 years. And the first half of that was in kind of larger corporate companies. And my first journey into the startup world was quite a shocker. I moved into a 35 person company, from a 1,000 person company. And, I remember walking out of training and asking my boss who could build a couple decks for my sales team. And she was almost in tears laughing. She said, "Hey, you must have missed this, but if a thing needs done, you're the person that does the thing in a startup." And so moving forward, we had to grow from 35 to about 400 people. That was the growth goals. So I had to hire a lot of people in my sales teams. And we had a recruiting department, and they got me a lot of really cool people I might want to sit down and have a drink with, but a lot of people I didn't want to hire, but I had to. So picture I would go back to the recruiting department multiple times and say, "Hey, these candidates that you brought me, not who I want. I'm spending 5 hours a day away from my team talking to people I don't want to talk to. Here's the profile. This is the perfect person. Go get them." And they couldn't do it. So I spent about 3 months learning how to be a sourcing recruiter. I was never officially trained. I just talked to people. I dealt with recruiters all the time. I liked some of them. Some of the things they did I didn't like. So I built a playbook on how to source candidates. And I would get up at 4 a.m. and I would source candidates until work. And then I would do the same thing after work. So fast forward, once I figured it out, we went from 35 people to over 600 people in the 3 years I was there. And I sourced about 250 of those folks.
Wow.
Next step. I went to my next startup. I was employee number one in Denver. Day one, the power was out, so I was literally building IKEA desks in the dark with a flashlight, closing deals on my cell phone. We hired 3 recruiting companies to help me build the whole thing out, and I fired them after 3 weeks. I got up at 4 a.m. every morning and started sourcing
Yeah.
candidates. We grew from 1 to 150 in a year and a half. I sourced all of them, and that was my passion. And when I started GSD, I was more of like a fractional VP of sales, where I would go into small startups and help them build out the process, the playbooks, uh, all of the things, and then I would help them hire their staff. And one day I just had that aha moment where you really need to niche your niche. What do you prefer? I could be great at both, or I could be amazing at one. And so that's kind of where it turned into recruiting. That was about 8 years ago. Company's 10 years old, and about 8 years ago, I just shifted from that into recruiting, and there you have it.
Wow.
That's the journey.
An amazing journey at that as well. I mean, just on that, with no official training or anything like that, what were the really key skills that you employed when it came to, growing teams and being able to find that many candidates?
I would say one is knowing the perfect candidate profile. So, I've worked for a lot of companies. I've been fortunate to be part of a couple of very large exits, and I've worked with hundreds of clients. And what I know is most companies, large, small, don't understand the very first step is you need to know exactly who that perfect person is. Once you figure out your crystal ball person, then you just need to go figure out where they hang out, what sandbox they play in, and you need to start playing in that sandbox. And so I took my LinkedIn, which at the time probably had about 3,000 people, I cut it down to about 100 because most of them were people that I didn't need in my network.
Yep.
And so I started building that network specifically of just people that I wanted in there. Now it's over 20,000, and the only people that are in there, or 99%, are either the people that I work with, such as SaaS founders, or salespeople. And it's intentional that they're all in there. But the big thing was, let's figure out who you want. Let's figure out where they are. Build a great network of really solid people who can refer people to you if you need. I've never cold called a candidate. I've never placed an ad. I do it old school. I figure out where they're at. Right now, we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. A lot more
Yep.
tools we have today than we used to have, back when I started doing this. And then it's the messaging and talking to the right people. I think the other thing is knowing in your mind that I have two customers. I have a candidate. No, the candidate's not paying me, but my job is to make sure that I represent them well and that I place them in the right company for them. And then I have the client who's paying me. And my job there is to make sure that I'm giving them the right person. So you have to have that mentality of how can I help everybody instead of trying to think of how do I help me? Because if you help everybody, everything else works out.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I think you're so bang on there, and a lot of interesting things. I like the fact that you stripped your LinkedIn all the way back. Um, it's a similar thing that we do in the marketing agency. It's like the followers we have on, Instagram and socials. We want them to only be, people who are actually our target market, so we can then
Yep.
go ahead and retarget them in some form of way. So yeah, super interesting take there.
Yeah. I call it the ocean to pond method, right? So a lot of people have, you know, let's say they have 30,000 followers on LinkedIn as an example. If LinkedIn is their what they're using, whatever it is that they're using, but it's all kinds of people and you get all kinds of likes and all this stuff, but it's not people that you want to talk to. So, you move out of the ocean into the pond and you just stock it with the only fish that you're interested in going after. It makes such a big difference.
100%. I couldn't agree more. But yeah, super interesting journey into recruitment. Again, like a lot of the other people I speak to, it's like you didn't really set out to, be a recruiter or get into recruitment. It just sort of fell in your lap. But
Yep.
you were a unique situation where it was like, okay, this is necessity. I'm not getting what I need from what we currently have. Let me go and do it myself.
Yep.
So amazing journey there. If we
Thanks.
if we look to, your company that we're working on right now, Travis, you've touched upon it a little bit, but what was the original vision of the firm and sort of how has that evolved over time? Again, I know you mentioned sort of niching down, but how has that really evolved?
Yeah, the original vision, like I mentioned, was really a fractional VP of sales. Like I said, where I would go in and help build things. It wasn't called that back then, but it was called a coaching consultant. But what happened? I had this aha moment on the way home one day where I had helped a two-person company. They were two founders, two brothers, and I had helped them build everything out. And then I helped them hire three salespeople, and I was in a sales director. And I was driving home, and I thought, man, I could have probably charged them for
Yeah.
that. and and that was kind of that light bulb. And so that was the start. That was the okay. Maybe we can turn this into a recruiting thing. I don't know what to charge. I really don't know all the things, but I understand sales. I understand the right side of things, and I understand finding talent. And so there really wasn't a vision there. It was really, can this happen? Can we make it work? We really figured it out. We were streamlining. We were having best year over year, and then COVID happened. And we
Amazing.
suddenly went from having our best year ever and then our best February ever to having no clients at all. Um, and, then having thousands of candidates that wanted to talk to me because they weren't working either. So we pivoted, and for a week it was really hard on our business. But then we realized we didn't really have a mission or a vision. We were just working in the business. So we set our vision, we set our goals, and we decided to work backwards from that. And it's amazing what happened. So simple thing is, we realized I was really busy every day, super busy. working way more hours than I should have and probably not being as productive. And so we did that, the good old whiteboard session, Owen, and it took an entire day. And we wrote down, first I tracked everything that I do for 2 weeks, every single thing that I do, because I knew I was just doing so many things.
Yep.
We wrote them all down on the whiteboard, and then we put them in three categories. Mission critical, the business fails if you don't do these things. Keep in mind, I'm fast forwarding. So as COVID happened, we had no business. I just went back to all my clients and figured they still have sales teams. Let me dive into the coaching aspect and help them with that until we figure out what's going to happen. When it started happening again, I dove in, but I didn't dive in with better processes. And so mission critical has to get done. It's important, but it doesn't have to be done today. And why the hell are you doing this? And so we eliminated why are you doing this completely. That was about probably 25% of my activities.
Wow.
Then we broke the remaining activities into what am I amazing at? What am I great at? And what do I love? And then what am I not so good at? And what do I not like doing? And there's just two of us, my business partner, Angie, and I. And so she works more on the project management side. So all of those tasks that I really didn't like, she does, that she loves and she's good at. And it changed the time, it changed the vision. And so we went from placing 3, maybe 4 candidates a month to placing 10 to 15 per month without hiring any staff. And it was
Wow.
purely because we worked our time out. And so what our long-term vision is we're probably 5 years away from, we were talking before the podcast, we just got back from the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And we go there every year for a couple of weeks. Our long-term vision is only 5 years away. We haven't decided if we're going to sell the business or how that's going to work, but we're going to have it for 5 more years, and then we're going to move to Kauai, and I'm sure we'll still do something. We've written a couple of books. Maybe we'll do some more of that. We'll see.
Awesome. Awesome. Super, super, super interesting stuff. And amazing to hear that you are only 5 years away. So yeah, also big kudos on that. I know, so you touched upon it. So in those early days, you were able to, grow pretty fast. You had that sort of big year. With that being said, I'm sure there were challenges sort of embedded within that. What were some of the sort of biggest challenges that you did come up against?
Yeah, early on, before we figured it out, before we really figured out this is a business. This is a really good business, and we need to make major changes. I would say one of the biggest challenges was I fell into the trap that a lot of recruiters fell into is I was bringing on clients I shouldn't bring on. And I was bringing on clients because I felt like I need to be busy. I need to have a lot of clients. And so we were bringing on clients that sometimes actually cost us money versus making us money. And from recruiting, that makes a lot of sense. We were just working with a lot of the wrong people that probably we should have referred to someone else or just told them, look, you're not even ready. You shouldn't even be hiring somebody today. You probably have 6 months of things to prepare before you're ready. So the number one thing was we wrote down business rules on who we will and won't work with. And if that changes, how quickly we may need to maneuver and be upfront. That was one challenge, just working with some of the wrong clients. Another challenge was we were undervaluing ourselves and we weren't charging enough. And I had this huge aha moment when almost a client, at the very end, she said, everything was great, but I'm not going to work with you because you don't charge enough, which means you're not good enough.
Wow.
And that was like,
Yep.
so, our fees went way up. We're still right in the market. We're maybe even under market value, but we're where we feel that we should be. So I would think that was number 2. Number 3 was big challenge was the busy work versus the right work. And, I was talking to tons of candidates every day, sometimes up to 20, that I didn't have job openings for, that I couldn't help, but I felt like I should. And that was, looking back, it wasted my time and theirs. I mean, yes, I gave them some benefit, I gave them some help, but I probably also gave them some false hope, right? And so now I'm having meetings very, very specific to will this help somebody? Will it help them? Will it help me? We're helping each other today, right? So those are the type of things. The next one was time. And big challenge was time. You would get off of a founder call. I'm potential client and I need to get my notes all put together. I need to figure this out. And suddenly I have a candidate call. And then I hang off of that, and now I have somebody calling me that wants me to help them with a job offer, and on and on and on and on. And it was so back and forth, and I was working way too early, working way too late. The moment I would get up, we'd get on the computer. I'm working through dinner, all those things, and realized, if we could block our time. So on Mondays, I'm talking to the same people. Tuesdays, the same people. Wednesdays, it's not back and forth from here to there. Today I'm doing 4 podcasts. That's what I'm doing today. It's very, very specific, so I can do the same thing. I can have the same conversation. We're working 7 recs right now. And so I'm trying to make sure when I'm talking to candidates, 3 of those recs are almost identical. So that the same day I'm talking to all the people with those 3 recs because I can have almost the same conversation. Next thing I kind of mentioned was we spent a lot of time working more than we should have, doing busy work. And, we would get up and we would have conversations about work. And we would do our things and talk about work. So we came up with a rule. When we get up, we're not turning on any electric devices. The world's not going to end. It's okay. We built a routine. We get up, we have breakfast, we might watch the news, we play cards every day, we go out and take a walk, we work out, we don't talk about work. And when it's time to get into work, we roll in, we have a stand up, we get going, and we go. When the day is done, the day is done. I tell the clients, like, if you're going to call me after our day is done, which in our case is 4:00, we won't be answering the phone. Yep. So please don't blow me up at 4:00. And if you do, I'm going to blow you up at 4 a.m. when I wake up. And so we protect our time. It's super valuable. So I think those were that was a lot of talk, but those were big blockers that we've kind of worked ourselves through, just so we're able to manage properly and not let all these other things. The final big one was chasing shiny objects. There's always something new and cool that I would see in a podcast or read in a book or another recruiting agency would tell me about. And I'd want to drop things and say, let's go do this. And my partner, Angie, would say, that's a shiny object. Stop chasing them. And so we've stopped doing that. We focus on what we're doing. We might try something new if it makes sense, but we don't drop everything else to do it. So that was a lot, but those were the challenges early on.
100%.
Same ones everybody else faced, probably.
Similar, but at the same time, I think not everyone goes into them in quite as much depth as you did, Travis. But I think it's so important to go in depth because naturally there's challenges everywhere. Like you're growing a business, you're trying to build a bit of an empire. It's never going to be plain sailing. I think the time one is super, super important. I think I find it myself as well in my daily life. Like I'll look at my calendar and it can just be slammed some weeks. And when I really like thinking about it now, when I really dig deep and think about how valuable is all of this stuff, a lot of it is probably, as you say, that sort of busy work, the 25% that's probably not contributing to the overall goal. So yeah, I think that's even something that I might have to go away and do myself. So I've learned something here already.
You should. And a shout out to a friend of mine, Dan Martell, wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. And for anybody listening to this, if you haven't read it, go get it. Like literally, it's a game changer. You won't want to put it down. You'll probably read it 10 times.
Yep.
And it will help with your time.
Yeah, I definitely need to take some of that into play. Also, you mentioned, so obviously there's good clients and bad clients. I mean, no one's a stranger to that. It's very, very obvious. How do you, and again, how do you make the decision of like, in those early stages where it's like, okay, we need money, we need to be generating revenue, how do you make that decision to step away and say, you know what, I'm gonna have to pass this up? Or was that a tough decision to make?
It was a tough decision, but I'm a math nerd, and numbers tell you everything. They don't lie. And so we went back and we audited the previous 3 years of work that we did. And we looked at every client we talked to. We broke every client down in about four different categories. And then we figured out which ones actually turned out good in two ways. One, in other words, which one did we actually have placements with?
Yep.
And two, which ones came back to us or we wanted to come back to them. And then the other side, right? So what we found was we were working sometimes outside of our wheelhouse. They could have been the best client in the world, but they weren't really in the areas we should have been working in. And then also there were the clients that we just shouldn't have worked with because it wasn't a great fit for us, or maybe they just weren't quite ready. Usually that comes down to, you can tell that pretty quickly.
Yep.
Um, there's a few, we don't have all the time to get into that, but there's a few signals within the first 5 minutes of talking to somebody that you can get a pretty good feel if we shouldn't be moving this conversation on. It's no different than sales, right? A salesperson can usually tell pretty quick if they're talking to the right or the wrong prospect.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. But yeah, sort of just moving on to looking at growth. I know you've touched upon it a little bit, but you're clearly building something, incredible here, Travis, and I am super fascinated by, how successful leaders do think about the future. So I know you said you have a sort of 5-year plan, but looking ahead in sort of the shorter term, say the next 12 to 24 months, what are the biggest growth priorities for yourself and the business?
Yeah, it's interesting because to hit our goals, we really need, like, for this year, we only need 1.1 additional placements per month from what we've been doing, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is if you don't hire other people. So you need to change your processes and your systems. And then next year, we're going to need about an additional two per month from where we're at right now. So not a ton, but in order to do that, we have to really figure out what changes can we make in the business so we have the time to properly do this.
Yep.
And we do our business a lot different. Although we don't have employees, we do work with partners. Um, let's say that it's we're overloaded and we have a great rec. We might work with one of our recruiting partners to assist if we need, or maybe we bring on one that just isn't in our wheelhouse and it's in theirs. So that's one way to help us. The other thing is we've been really working on automation. How can we automate our systems? Uh, I've found that I spend a ton of time coaching the clients that I work with. Um, Help them with their processes, help them build their job description, help them with the compensation. And I should step back, remind me, and I'll talk to you who about my perfect client is, so this all kind of makes sense. Um, but I find that we do a lot of time doing all of that. And so I went and built a series on how these founders can use AI tools to do all of those things for them. And a lot of people think you just type into AI and it tells you what to do, but that's not true. You have to spend a lot of time figuring out what prompts to give it and what to tell it to ask you how to do these things. And so I've built a series of things where instead of spending 3 hours speaking with somebody and coaching them, I can give it to them in an hour. They can have all the things done we could have covered in 3 hours. So that's something that's going to save a lot of time right there. We still need the human contact. We still need to be able to do the coaching and the helping and all of that. But that's one thing.
100%. I think the AI is so important, and you see it all the time, like, oh, AI is gonna take over the world. Some are for it, some are against it. I don't think AI is going to take over the world. I think the people like yourself and what you just mentioned there, the people who can leverage AI to help them get forward and know the prompts to use and know how to activate everything within it, they're the ones who are going to get, super, super ahead. Like yourself, you've just cut the time you spend by sort of 66% just by utilizing AI.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Now I will also tell you what we don't use AI for.
Please.
I 100% believe in communication and the human touch. And a lot of companies now, their first two interviews is AI talking to a person. That person isn't going to be able to ask AI what the challenges in the company are and how did they come up with the compensation model that they have and all of those things. And the top A plus talent, whether it's sales or any talent, they want to ask the hard questions and they're going to. And AI is not going to be able to answer it with emotion like a founder is going to be able to. So I don't agree with that. I can see where it's a benefit, maybe somewhere through the stage. If there's a role play to be done or something like that, I can see that being a big benefit. Probably even better than some people who role play that don't understand if it was a good role play or not. You could train AI how to role play with somebody, and then you can have AI give you a report back. That could be great.
Yep.
But there's good and bad ways to use it, and I think we have to be careful not to lose that human touch.
100%. You're in the relationship business. You're in the human
Mm-hmm.
business. You can't
Yeah.
you can't lose that.
No, and the other thing is, as we're speaking, we already have several pieces of junk mail in our inbox sent from somebody who just used AI and didn't think about who they were messaging or what they were messaging, and they're absolutely terrible. But again, that's for another topic. But I think you can get the messaging put together very, very well if you think it through and you don't try to automate everything. There's automation and there's crazy automation.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. But no, super interesting. Moving on now. So, Travis, if there was one thing in your business, if you could fix it or you could improve it, or improve it, sorry, that would have the biggest impact on your firm's growth. Would you be able to put your finger on that?
Oh yeah, 100%. So we almost scare you to say this. We haven't done outbound calling or emailing or cold calling or cold emailing for 5 years, and we
Wow.
don't plan on it. We 100% of our business is through partnerships that we've built, referral partnerships. Um, and I would say the one thing we've hit upon is we need two more really, really solid big partnerships like a couple that we have right now. And these are type of partnerships where we're going to their conferences 3, 4 times a year. We're speaking, doing lunch and learns. We're actually uh, guest hosts on some of their trainings. We're part of the community.
Yep.
And when you do that, you gain a lot of trust. You get to know the people you're working with. Uh, they're calling you up saying, "Hey, I saw one of the trainings in the library. I'm new here to this community. I'd love to chat with you." We also do spend a lot of time just talking to folks that might need some help that I know will never be a client, but that's kind of part of what you need to do. So I would say our big thing is we're looking for two more. We have a couple in mind. It's important to us to find the right type of partnerships that also work with the exact type of client that we do in the way that we do.
Perfect. And again, obviously, how do you activate a partnership like that? Like how do you begin that relationship? Is it a case of we reach out through email, we have like a referral process from one of our current partners? How does that sort of work?
Every partner that we currently have came from a previous relationship. So a really good example is our largest partner right now is SaaS Academy, and I worked. Their COO just opened up his own company and is now part of SaaS Academy, but again in a different form. I had worked with him for years, where we had referred clients back and forth to each other. When he started there, he called me up and he's like, "Hey, we need some help. We need a sales director, and it's an impossible role to fill. I need your help." And 3 weeks later, the offer was accepted. And I just got into the community. And when they opened up we had a partnership, but when they started an actual partner program, it was a no brainer.
Yep.
And so it's almost all of those are people at some point we had either worked with or interacted with, and then they saw this opportunity for this thing. Um, that's pretty much how they've all worked, or somebody knew somebody who knew somebody, that type of thing.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's testament to the work that you do and the relationships that you're obviously able to build. Also, so nice not having to ever do cold outreach. Like, it's the bane of everyone's life.
Well, I guess I should take that back. I do cold outreach to candidates. Sorry. So
Okay, yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
I do that. I don't pick up the phone and call them, but we reach out to them. So I guess I'm doing it on one side, just not on the other side.
Yeah, a little bit different. I was more so meaning on the client acquisition side for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah, not too fun. But no, it's super interesting, and I love to hear that. Are there Are there any strategies or ideas, and you sound like a man who has, lots of ideas. I appreciate that you sort of stay within your wheelhouse though. But are there any strategies or ideas that you have tried, in the last year that you found to be interesting, even if they maybe didn't quite play out the way that you told?
Yeah, one of the things that we did is we were focused solely on sales recruiting. I mean, that was our thing. We were 100% SaaS sales recruiting. We work with founder-led SaaS organizations that are between 1 million and 10 million annual recurring. That's what we do. We niched our niche. That's the thing we do. Um, but we were turning down a lot of other opportunities and a lot of other money because we were so focused in this area. And Angie, my business partner, she had 25 years in program management and project management, and she probably hired as many people as I did during my career. We both probably each hired over 500 people during our careers, and she didn't hire sales staff. She hired people on this side where I'm on this side. And
Yep.
so our idea was, let's just test the waters a little bit. We don't want to confuse our clients, but let's just test the waters and say we also do these other couple of things. Um, we're going to still stick with talking about sales recruiting because that's what we do, but we're going to let people know we also do these other things. Our concern was it would confuse people. We were wrong. Actually, it's helped our clients place a lot more people quicker, and it's helped us place a lot more people with our clients. Because typically, if somebody's hiring for sales, that means they're growing, and if they're growing, they probably are going to be hiring in other areas as
Yep.
well. So it was something we tested that we weren't sure of. That we're all in now.
Amazing, amazing. I think that's testament to, you know, doing a small test, like just dipping your toes in the water to get a feel of what the market's saying. And
Yep.
once you get that green light, it's like, yeah, let's really push this now.
Now I made it seem easy. It took some iterations for sure, Owen.
Yeah,
We had to rebuild our website. We had to do a lot of things. We had to change our messaging. In certain areas, a couple of the partners we work with, we don't mention that at all because we're exclusive in this area, and there's other people that are exclusive in that area, and so we don't want to, dirty the waters or anything.
yep,
But it took a bit, but we figured it out for sure.
awesome. I love it. And again, maybe a little bit of a harder one now, but there was one thing in your business, Travis, or there's one idea that you could test with absolutely no risk whatsoever. What would you love to try?
Anything I could test with no risk, huh?
No risk, so you have free card to do what you want.
Yeah, just I think I've already done that, so I don't. I'll kind of answer your question. We had done some trainings, online trainings, some small lunch and learns, things like that. Um, we decided, it'd be kind of cool if we tried doing some larger speaking engagements. That sounds really easy. It's not for a lot of reasons. One is how do you actually get somebody to bring you in to do this? So we figured that out and we started testing it, and it's been very successful. It's helped us bring on a lot of new clients, but that being said, it's also added a lot more revenue to our bottom line. As now, when the word goes from here to here to here, because a lot of the folks we work with are in mind share groups with people in other areas. Now people are reaching out and asking us to come speak and paying us a lot more than I thought that our value
Amazing.
was for that. So yeah, that was the one thing that again we just tested. If there's something new, we haven't really. again, I mentioned the shiny object syndrome. We do biannual board meetings where we sit down, and that's where we talk about possible new ideas. Unless we suddenly know this thing's going to be a game changer, we have to do it. We try to just table that stuff, and that was our thing. So that was the thing. Now we have some that we're going to discuss that are coming up, but I can't really say because we may decide that none of them make sense.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm sure you smash it when you get on stage, and clearly as you're able to, acquire clients from that as well.
Yeah, it's
But
it's a it's a lot of fun while doing it. The 5 minutes prior to that isn't a lot
yeah,
of fun.
yeah, I
It's
can
that
imagine.
nerves thing. Yeah.
It's never going to leave you, especially when you're getting up on stage to speak to, a
Yeah.
lot of people. But no, super, super impressive stuff. Just sort of coming to a bit of a close now, Travis. Across your journey, again, had a very decorated career now doing super amazing stuff with the current business. What has been the most rewarding part of all of that for you? Whether that's, as a leader or more so as a founder, what would that be?
Boy, if I don't know if I can pick one. Um, I would say one of the biggest rewarding things is to watch the journey of the clients that I've worked with and to see where they go. I've seen one particular client was at 500,000 annual reoccurring when we started working with them 2.5 years ago, and they're probably going to hit 15 to 16 million this year in annual
Wow.
reoccurring. Um, they've brought on some funding. They're already thinking of what that exit could look like. So things like that are really great. I think another great thing is Angie and I took the playbook from the business that we built for GSD Coach Recruiting, and we thought, well, could we literally build a second business using the same playbook and still be able to keep our sanity? And we did. So it's called Done Project Management Consulting, and so we also run that. Um, Still not going crazy. We're able to do both. So that's satisfying. The third one is, we're Angie and I are able to do this together. We're married. We're business partners, and
Yeah.
we work really, really well together. And I think that's rewarding because it's probably not easy for a lot of people. It's probably not easy for us sometimes,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I would say those are
100%.
the things.
I love it. I love it. And, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, go all the way back to the start, what would that be?
Protect your time. Yeah, I would say that's the big. I mean, there's a ton of advice, but I remember when I was working for these startups, and I'd work 12, 15, 18-hour days because we wanted to get our funding. We got our $50 million Series C funding, but I wasn't sleeping. Um, and when I started the business, I thought you had to do the same thing. It's our business. We should have to work all the hours. Um, but realizing now, I would kick myself and say,
Yep.
"You're doing this all wrong. Protect your time. You just need to be smart about what you're doing and when you're doing and who you're doing it with." And I think there's been a shift. You've probably noticed this from those, 20-hour days where founders are all laying they're all in this one house together and they're rolling out of bed and working and then they crash it and keep going. That still happens, but not as much. A lot of people are figuring, how can I do this? And also, we're not big enough at that point, but an advice I would give is almost every founder should have an executive assistant.
Yep.
It's just amazing how my clients that I worked with a couple of years ago, how their processes were working with them today. It's so much more efficient. So it's just amazing. Really, Angie and I are each other's executive assistants. So
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. No,
yeah.
Travis, thank you. Thank you so much for coming
Oh
on,
yeah.
sharing all your insights. It's been super interesting. Where can people find yourself? Where can people find Angie, your business?
Yeah. You can go find me on LinkedIn, Travis Janko, or you can go to our website. That's gsd-coach.com. And that'll pretty much explain our business, tell you all about it. Both of our books that we've published are up on there. Um, a lot of free resources for anybody that's ever planning on hiring or doing any recruiting. We post them up there. A lot of blog posts that we're putting up there that are, most of them are related to trainings that we've done. So really good content up there. I'm not throwing something into AI and say, put this thing out for me and make it look cool. They're in our voices. So that's where you can find us. It has our contact information on the website. It has our emails, has our phone numbers on there. If somebody wants to reach out to us for a good reason, we'd be happy to chat.
Before 4 p.m. as well. No one reach
Yes,
out after 4 p.m.
that's accurate. You can send an email if you want. I'll check it at 4 a.m. So I actually at 6 a.m. So
Perfect, Travis. But no, thank you again so much. Really appreciate you coming
you
on.
bet.
I've really enjoyed the conversation.
I appreciate it. It was good to see you again, on.
Thank you, my friends.
Bye now.
Bye bye.